what I was saying is part of, sometimes there's a downside to our generation because of the hyper focus. It develops other things in this. So I read about a small study kind of survey that was done from a website called YPulse, which is really interesting. It's a website that looks into millennial or Gen Y and Gen Z like topics, things that are happening for those generations. So they really only cover those two generations, which I thought was really interesting. And if you want any insight into those generations, this website provides it, so you can go in there and kind of search what you're looking for. So I thought that was really dope.
That sounds like it would be really useful.
Yeah, I think it would be useful for maybe like parents and maybe like better understand.
I'm talking about for me.
Oh,
Shit.
really?
Yeah, because
Okay.
I mean, we had a conversation before the show on how I never really took to this whole, XYZ millennial Gen X, thing. And I guess that really like puts the stamp of Gen X on me, that I didn't adapt to like this new thing that came out. It really I've dated myself by doing it.
Ooh.
But the website that you described, it sounds really interesting. It sounds like a place where I can go and just have it all visually in front of me. See?
Yeah.
And then where I could see it, rather than like trying to listen to people talk about it and then visualize it internally and then learn about it that way. I think that's what kind of just confuses me. Like when people are talking about the generations and where they fall on the timeline, I never really wrapped my head around it. I just never really had an interest to.
I think what I was trying to tell you earlier is that not to focus necessarily on like the timeline, but more focus on like who we are as people in our generation.
Is it bad to say that I just didn't care?
No.
Honestly,
I don't think it's bad if you don't have an interest in something.
Yeah, I don't know. I just never really cared to like separate and categorize people by like, oh, you're part of this generation and you're part of that generation.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So from this website, I pulled something out that I wanted to read to the audience that I thought was really interesting. And of course, I can also identify with this. So Gen Z and millennial females are from the most anxious generations to date. They are more anxious than the millennial and Gen Z males.
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay, so Mary Lee Bliss, a youth and pop culture expert at YPulse. So I think that these are two generations of women who are potentially questioning what is the right thing for them. Back to what I was saying earlier. We are looking for the best fit for our lives. We want to know what is going to fucking jive with us the best. What is going to be the most beneficial for our mental health? What is going to be the most beneficial for our life? What is going to be, the most beneficial for maybe our families? Because I have a family. This to me can be like the dark side of being someone that is looking for the best fit. You develop stressors, you develop anxieties, trying to find that perfect thing, trying to walk yourself down that journey and trying to fit into a world that you want to create for yourself, whereas maybe older generations kind of just followed a map that was given to them, like get a job, retire, get a union, join the union, work somewhere where you could, 20 years. It was kind of like almost robotic. So they almost didn't have to think about what they had to do. It was like, okay, I go to school, go to college, get married, have kids, buy a home, raise my family, and that's it.
Cookie cutter.
Yeah, where millennial and Gen Z, we're not looking at it. We're like, there's all these possibilities, and I kind of want to like tap into it all, but at the same time, I want to do things that are soul enriching for myself. But then there's stress that comes with that. I almost kind of sometimes joke about it. I just read something today on Pinterest about a checklist that you can do in the morning when you're waking up. And I no lie, Ivo, this checklist was like 10 things long. It was like, get up in the morning, don't touch your phone for 15 minutes, journal 5 things, then get up and brush your teeth. Oh wait, before you brush your teeth, it was drink certain amount of ounces of water, then brush teeth, oil pull, do 10 minutes of, I was just like,
I've been very interested in this oil pulling thing. It sounds like a lot of work. But.
Yeah, I felt stress reading the list because fine, these are the things that potentially could bring me that soul enriching feeling, right? That like I'm giving myself things that are good for my mental health, things that are going to bring me in, true happiness and true joy. But just reading that list, I was like, I feel fucking anxious right now reading it. So I think that is like the weird balance that millennial women are dealing with, especially when you are a parent and you're trying to still find that like your yin and your yang, like how can I function healthy for mind, body, and soul, but then still be a good mother, but then still keep my house clean and still have a job that, you know, like we talked about this before, it has a good work-life balance. But the thing that we do differently is that we're a little bit more outspoken about our stressors. We're a little bit more outspoken about our anxieties.
Yeah, you guys talk to each other a lot.
But we also are verbal about it on like social platforms too. You know, we will share things that are our trials and tribulations in life. Whereas past generations, it was just kind of like, yo, buck up. That's life. You know, older generations were like to say things like, we're entitled, we're soft, we're weak. You know, we complain. But it's because we are expressing our feelings and our dissatisfaction as to how things are going in our life.
we were conditioned not to express our feelings.
Yes, I would agree.
For the most part, yeah.
And that's part of the Gen X that I identify with.
Mm-hmm.
But as I've gotten older, I'm like, fuck that noise. I actually made a commitment to myself that when someone asks me how I'm doing, I tell them the truth now.
Nah, not me. I saved that shit for like, you know, for actually only one person, which is you. I don't really tell, like, I used to kind of be like that, but I just feel like it's pointless because I used to say a lot when people would say, you know, how you doing? And I would say, fine. I can't complain because if I did, no one would care. You complain about stuff, or I mean, this is just my personal opinion, but you know, if I used to complain about something, I know some people would hear you out and they would say something, but they would go about their day. They wouldn't do anything about it. You know, nothing would change about it. The problem would still exist. Yeah, I got to vent a little bit, but then I just felt like people knew my personal problems and maybe gave them now the ability to go gossip about me. You know, guess what I heard? You know, so I kind of learned to keep those things to myself and just deal with them. You know, and just have a handful of people, maybe even just one person to talk to those things about. And to me, that person is you.
Yeah, no, I think it's very important to have a good circle of friends and family or confidants, people that you can share your trials and tribulations with. But I just want to make a point to say that there's a difference between saying how I feel and oversharing. I heard that. I had someone ask me day before yesterday, or yesterday was it rather, how I'm doing. And I was really honest. I kept it short and I kept it brief, but I went into a little bit in depth of like some of the things that have happened to me in the past month or so that kind of like put me in a funk, and I had no problem sharing that. And then in turn, the person turned around and was like, you know, it's really nice to hear someone say like truly how they're feeling. And then I told her, I said, yeah, I made a commitment to myself that when people ask me how I'm doing, I'm going to tell them really how I'm doing. And she was like, oh my God, I really love that. And it was nice because it was reciprocated in a way where she received what I was saying as genuine, and like she felt comfortable in that space, and that was nice. And I think it was because I shared, but I didn't overshare. I didn't make it awkward. I think sometimes people want that. I think they, you know, the small talk, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. You know, they maybe they're looking for a little bit more. So yeah, so now I shared with you, you know, what it is to kind of like be a millennial woman and some of the things that we're faced with and the journey that we're on when it comes to being a millennial woman. I would love to hear from you, you know, some of the things that you have for us about a millennial woman, even though Ivo is not a woman, but he lives with one every day.
Definitely not a woman last time I checked. And I had to look it up, you know, because again, like I stated a few moments ago, I really wasn't into it, and I still am not into the whole knowing the different generations and what letter those generations stand for. But I took the time to take a dive, and what I found was an almost exact representation of who you are.
Yeah, I told you I'll be about that shit.
Yeah. So what I found was that a millennial woman is like a unicorn, but instead of a horn on their head, they have a phone attached to their hand.
In my case, it's my AirPods in 24/7, and when I can't find my AirPods, I literally feel like a part of my body is missing.
And more so now that, you know, we do this content and we have the show, that, you know, you're working on stuff and you're posting things and you're kind of like, you know, responding. So you do have your phone in your hand a lot.
I'm definitely a cyborg.
And I would say that, you know, it described as the phone being permanently attached to the woman's hand. And you see that a lot on you know, on social media. Again, you know, it's all about the phone and all about the pictures. And you actually, it describes you as a unofficial photographer, which, like, if anybody knows you, they know that you're constantly taking photos. I mean, either you work on set, which I think attest to that. So you're constantly around photographers, and for a while, you were constantly posting pictures of like what you were wearing, your makeup looks, your hair, and so like I'm like, man, is this like, am I really reading this, or is this like I'm just blown away by like how accurate this was. She can take the perfect selfie at any angle and won't be caught dead in a photo not looking her best.
Yeah, don't share that shit on Instagram, girls. Tell me you can't identify with that.
Yeah.
We want to take the pictures. We want to see the pictures. Send them in the group chat, and then I'm gonna tell you which one I like the best. I'm a little less anal about that nowadays, because I tend to like not care as much. If I'm gonna post a picture of myself, out of 10, I'm gonna pick the best one. Of course.
I think you do, and I mean,
why is it funny?
Because like again, I feel like this is kind of like astrology for me, right? So I was never really big into astrology, and once I started learning about it and what astrology represents and how those the zodiac signs they tie in with the person's personality, it really started to like line up for me, right? So I feel like that this is kind of the same thing. Like it really kind of hits the nail on the head when it comes to describing a millennial. So it went on to say that she's a master of the side eye and can spot a basic guy or a basic girl from a mile away. Now when I say like that is you to a T, we've been in so many situations where like you're scoping things in a way where I don't even notice. There's stuff that's on your radar that I'm not even thinking about when we're like out in public places, or we're like talking to people, or we're in a group setting with people that we don't know. You're pointing things out to me that I'm just like completely unaware of, and I think that just attests to like the way that you're always looking around, even though it doesn't look like you are.
Yeah, I'm very tuned in. It's all about the vibe for me.
Yeah, and lastly, she's independent as fuck. Did I say that right? No, she's independent as fuck.
Yeah.
I can't think of a better word to describe you.
Yeah, but I think that describes like the majority of millennial women.
Well, listen, the one that I know the most is you, and so I mean, if a lot of them are like that, then hats off.
Yeah,
to
but
them.
think about it. But a lot of millennial women. Like literally, all of my girlfriends are millennials.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and they all do possess a lot of the same qualities, and I mean, I guess that explains why you guys are such close friends. You guys share a lot of similar qualities.
Well, we're not just friends because I mean, yes, we obviously have things in common, but whatever.
Yeah, you can relate to each other on those levels in many ways.
Correct, we can. But I think some of the reasons why we have some of these similar qualities is because we are millennial women. We were raised in a way that has honed these things in us.
Yeah, I know. You gotta you gotta bear with me, because you forget. I that's still hard for me to to put those two and two together.
That's interesting to me that it's like kind of, I guess, difficult for you to wrap your head around, because you were raised in a generation that has really kind of honed your taste. We talked about this before, but we're actually going to get into that in maybe like another episode, like how a man is. But go ahead.
No, so that's those are the qualities that I found that primarily exist in a millennial woman, which I just was blown away how accurate it was in describing you.
Can I put this? I completely agree with that description, and I think it goes hand in hand like what we kind of got from chat. Why is it so hard to say chat GPT? Okay, yeah. Thanks. But I think you also wanted to share with us some like tips and tools and advice of like how to deal with potentially some of the downfalls of like what it is to be a millennial woman.
Yeah.
Because I did say that because of how we function, there is a downside to who we are and how we go about doing things. So I would love if you shared some of that.
Yeah, I mean, so some of the drawbacks of being a millennial woman is financial insecurity. And
because we all walking around with student loan debt.
Yeah, that, and many women face insecurity because of student loan debt, high cost of living, and you put that together with the gender pay gap. And it really can be a tough time to be a millennial woman. And so some of the ways to deal with that is to try developing a financial plan. This can include setting financial goals, identifying ways to reduce expenses, and finding ways to increase your income.
Yeah, so that means no more avocado toast and less Starbucks.
Yeah. And millennial women, quote unquote, have this like, I don't know, you see them like a lot of them tend to spend a lot of money, always want to travel, buying clothes, and always. So that can also add to having financial insecurity if they're living that type of lifestyle. And then you add the student loan debt, you add the gender pay gap, and what you get is like you can get a situation that can be really messy. There's a lot of people out there, not to just single out millennial women, there's a lot of people out there in fucked up situations, but this one in specific is something that currently millennial women are struggling with.
Yeah. As you were saying that, I think one of the things that I immediately thought about was the past generations of women. They fought hard for us to have financial freedom, and then we're over here putting ourselves in debt buying fucking clothes and going on trips. Because maybe a long time ago, women didn't have that luxury of just getting up and saying, I want to go here, I want to do this, I want to buy this. There was that dependency on a man's financial contribution to a woman's finances, and many women are not finding themselves in that position anymore.
So when it comes to student loans, there are many ways to deal with that. If you call up your federal student aid provider, they have income-driven repayment plans that you can get on that can allow you to slowly pay that off or quickly pay that off over time.
Well, currently, President Biden has all of our loans on pause.
Yeah, on pause. But pause means pause. Like the play button will be will be getting hit at some time, and you're going to have to deal with the music that comes on when that time comes. And so, I myself was a pretty irresponsible person when it came to my student loans at the beginning. So I can identify with this, and that's what I ended up doing. I ended up getting on a payment plan and, paying these things off and just constantly chipping away at them over time so that I don't have that financial insecurity in the long run. I'm able to get this thing out of my way. As far as the gender pay gap, one way to go about dealing with that is to research companies that have proven track record for paying employees fairly. I think that many people, and women in particular, go about working at jobs kind of like jumping around, just hoping that they land a job that's going to pay them fairly, not knowing that they can actually research companies that their business model is tied around, fairly paying wages across all genders.
I actually think that is such a valuable thing to provide, because honestly, I don't think I've ever looked into a job and said, I wonder if they pay people fairly. I'm just hoping that I get paid a lot. You're
gonna come in at an entry level and kind of bust your ass and work your way up to the top and hope that you land a high paying job. But
yeah, because women are more likely to not negotiate salary.
Yeah.
I myself had to really find my way in that world. It took me a while to be very confident in negotiating salary, because there was that fear of if I pushed a little too far, then they would just go with another candidate. And I've learned that if I'm really putting my best foot forward and I know that what I'm putting on the table is of worth real value, because it was, then what I'm looking to be paid is adequate.
Yeah.
So if they reject me, that's not looked bad upon me. It's more of like the company's decision. It's not like I don't have the criteria, because I know that I do. So I had to be confident in that stance. And I would like to say that you kind of have nothing to fear but fear itself, because
that shit'll fuck you up.
When you do it a couple times, you get a little battery in your back, and you're like, oh, okay, I got that 13% increase that I wanted, because but don't go in there with not all your with not all your ducks in a row and expect to.
Yeah, no, you got to walk in there with your blades all sharpened up, ready to go. And there's, you have to have your negotiation tactics. I think like one good tactic that I heard is asking if the salary is negotiable. It's a really simplistic way of saying, do we have any wiggle room here, rather than just accepting whatever they throw at you or feeling awkward about counter offering your salary. Just asking in itself, like, so they say, how much does the position pay? The position pays the XYZ. Okay, is that negotiable? And that right then and there, you're gonna know. Like, if they tell you yes, it is, then there's wiggle room. If they say no, I'm sure it's not. Then that that's what it is, and there's no need to discuss any increase in salaries at that point. And you can decide, well, you know what, this is not for me, or I'm gonna take the job. Another way of dealing with financial insecurity, if you really want to get fancy outside of the things that I just mentioned, is educate yourself on finance and investing. This includes reading books, taking online courses, and working with a financial advisor to see how you can set yourself up for an advanced retirement program, or maybe investing in stocks and things like that can be a little bit complex, but that's what I would consider a bolt-on. Once you get your student loans out of the way, and you figure out a job that's equally paying, and that you're getting a good salary. Once you got all these things buttoned up and you're really kind of like you got everything dialed in, you want to step it up a bit, start financial planning.
Yeah, because it's pretty difficult. It's not like as clear cut. You say it sounds nice, but
yeah, it is. That's why I kind of like
difficult.
I put it on the end kind of as a bolt on, because I didn't want to just not mention it, but I didn't want to actually suggest it as something that you should initially do when you're trying to wrap your head around being, financial instability in this day and age.
Yeah, and you don't want to stress yourself out, because we obviously do a good job of that.
Yeah, and speaking of stressing yourself out, another drawback of being a female millennial is the pressure to have it all.
I said this.
Yeah, I think that a lot of women are in competition with each other, trying to show that they got it all.
And we're in competition with one another in not real life. We'll see women on social media.
Yeah, there's a social expectation for millennial women to have successful careers, maintain the perfect appearance, and to have a fulfilling life all at the same time. Like, damn.
Yeah.
If that doesn't describe having the world on your shoulders, like, I don't know what does.
Yeah, because if I think about past generations, it was good enough if a woman was like a good housewife and was married and had a decent house. But now it's like you got to have that plus a good job, be a good mother, still look good. You have to have the whole kit and caboodle. And I can tell you that that's probably the one that I identify with the hardest, because you do feel this almost like invisible social pressure to want to be successful in all of these realms.
Yeah.
And then what it does to you little by little, because you're not even aware of it happening as it's happening, because it's like almost a slow progression.